Hi there, and welcome to today's live stream where I'll be introducing the Google Ads display campaigns. My name is Lisa Preuss, and I'm the founder and managing partner of an online marketing agency called La Click. I'm also one of 9 Google certified trainers here in Switzerland and super excited to get to take you through today's agenda. So first off, I'll be introducing the Google Display Network, also known as GDN, followed by the different targeting methods throughout the Google Display Network. Then we'll have a look at the bidding strategies that are possible and some of the different ad formats that you can choose from when creating an ad. After that, I'll give you a real sneak peek preview into the Google Ads account so you know exactly how to set up a display campaign there. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. But for those of you who are watching this live, feel free to ask your questions directly in the comment section. And if I don't get to them before the end, then I will definitely try and make sure to answer all of the questions throughout the very end. For those of you watching this as a recording, you're still more than welcome to ask questions, and we'll try and get back to you as soon as we can. With that said, let's dive right in. The Google Display Network, or GDN, and why is this important? Well, it turns out when we're online, approximately 21% of the time we spend online is spent searching for things. Whether we're on the Google search, searching for things, or other search engines, we are looking for information actively. But now, what about the other 79%? Well, it turns out throughout that time, we are actually surfing. We're reading websites, blogs. We want to play games and apps or check our emails. So for a large portion of our time online, we're actually not so much searching, but surfing. And this is where the Google Display Network comes in, because how can you reach users who aren't actively searching for you? Well, the answer is through the Google Display Network. So you see, for those actively searching on the Google search, we have SEA, or search engine advertising, when you can display a text ad, for example, and have that ad appear when someone is looking for a keyword. Throughout the GDN, the Google Display Network, we can reach out to users even though they're not actively searching, but while they are surfing through ads that we place there. Now, the beauty of the Google Display Network is its reach. It's got a huge reach, and in fact, worldwide, allows us to reach about 90% of internet users. In other words, there are over 2 million websites your ads could be displayed on if you choose the Google Display Network. And you can also make sure to have your ads show on all devices across not just desktops and mobile phones, but in apps as well, and on tablets, to make sure that you reach your users not only the right kinds of users, but also in the right moment in which device they're currently using. And now for those of you who are going, wait a minute, this could be interesting for me, not only as an advertiser, but potentially even to have ads placed on my site, well, then make sure to check out Google AdSense, because you could be eligible to be part of the Google Display Network. And with that said, Let's move on to the next chapter, targeting. Now, as we all well know, a customer journey has become extremely elaborate. Taking it as an example, someone who is thinking of going to Paris. Now, we do know borders are bound to open soon. And let's say this is a foodie who's really, really always dreamed of eating out in a really nice restaurant in the middle of Paris. Well, chances are the customer journey could look something like this. So first, this person asks a friend, hey, we should book a trip to Paris. Would you be on board? Then chances are they could read some articles, things like insider tips for Paris, what to see when you're in Paris, what to do when you're in Paris. Also making sure that these things are open. Then they could actively search for certain things like the best museum in Paris and its opening times. Then, in the moment of it all, you may want to actually learn a little bit of French to make sure you know how to politely say thank you, or potentially even book something in French. And for that, you can visit YouTube and check out a video along the lines of French for beginners. Then you can still browse some more websites, read reviews about different travel sites, check out what other people thought, how other people experienced their time there. And then the moment we've been waiting for, the search for the best restaurant in Paris. And after that, they may not directly book after the search, but at some stage go back onto that website of the restaurant that they've opted for and book a table there, leading us to the actual conversion, the booked table at the restaurant. But to get there, there were so many other touch points. And this is what makes the Google Display Network so beautiful, in that users are constantly on it, even throughout one single customer journey. So that really gives us as advertisers great ways to reach out to them in the right moment with whatever it is that we offer, to make sure that they can take this into account while they're making their decision. And that brings us to the classic targeting options throughout the Google Display Network. Now, one of the categories is topics, meaning that you as an advertiser can select certain topics from a category list that you would like your ads to appear on. And what it does is it'll sort all of the different websites that belong to the Google Display Network into different topics, and then display ads that match with the topics that you've selected. So if you choose sports articles or American football, it'll make sure to show your ads on websites that are all about these topics. Another targeting option would be placements. Now, placements, as the name leads to believe, means you can directly select on which sites you would like your ads to appear. In other words, if you choose, for example, weather.com or städte-info.net, then that is exactly where your ads can appear, on those sites. Again, you do need to check whether a certain website is part of the Google Display Network to make sure that you can select it as a placement. But if it is, voila, you can directly choose to have your ads placed there. Then there's also keyword targeting. And here, you can select certain keywords, enter them, and then what Google Ads will do is either one of two things. Either it shows ads, again, on websites that have to do with these keywords, or it can show your ads to users who are interested in these keywords. So things like shoes, or buy shoes online, or shoe fashion. In other words, this contextual targeting, meaning selecting where you'd like your ads to show up, that is still possible. So using topic targeting, placement targeting, and keyword targeting options. But get this, Google Ads now allows you to not only use this contextual advertising, but far more importantly, to select certain target groups that you would like to reach. Because at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter as much where your ads appear, but who is seeing them there. And that's why now, and you'll see this later when we do the demo, we're first asked to choose the target group and can then later still opt for certain contextual targeting options. As for the target group itself, what you can do here is you can select certain demographics. You can choose from different interests. You can opt for different stages, like in the buying stages or researching stages, or choose to reconnect with people who, for example, already been on your website through remarketing lists. Now, do keep in mind, though, that if you're going to go for the demographic targeting option, it's important to know that just because some people may be of the same age, have the same gender, etc., does not mean that they have very much else in common. And as an example, let's take Ozzy Osbourne and Prince Charles, right? These two are both males. They're both aged 70, turning 71 this year, both from the UK, and yet from their interests, I believe they could not be more different. So do just keep that in mind while you're targeting, because just because someone is in the same demographic group as someone else does not mean that they are very similar with regards to their interests. And still, I do know that especially for a lot of startups out there or people with a new business idea, it can be hard to know the potential target group's interests. And so to start out, you may use these demographic targeting options. Now, in case you're wondering, wait a minute, how does Google know my interests? Well, there's a one way of answering that question, and it has to do with your search history. So depending on what you're searching for, that already says a whole lot about the kind of person that you are, the kind of interests that you have. And that's why it's so important to state here that while this can be very helpful for advertisers to make sure that they reach the correct target group, you as the user are always in control. And that's why I want to quickly take a moment and show you where you can find out more about different interests that may or may not influence the ads that you are seeing, and how you can, if you'd like, turn that off or check it out to see if there's something that doesn't match with your actual interests. And this has to do with your account. So you can actually go to account.google.com, and I'll show you this right here in my account. And if you go to manage your data and personalization. Here you'll find a rubric called ad personalization. And if you go to your ad settings, here you'll find all of the data that Google has about your interests that it uses to personalize the ads that you see. Now, if you don't want your ads to be personalized, you can easily turn this off. If you prefer to keep it on and want to check the different interests that are being matched with you as a person, and you can do so here. And you can always deselect something that doesn't hold true. So you're in control and you have total transparency. Also, if you do happen to see an ad that you feel doesn't very much match with you or doesn't feel very relevant to you, then there is always the option to deselect it. There's a small X somewhere in the ad, typically on the top right corner, and you can click on it, and then you can select that you no longer wish to see this ad and even why you would no longer wish to see it, giving you as a user full control over the ads that are displayed to you, even while you're seeing them. Now, again, from an advertiser's perspective, you may be wondering which targeting option makes sense for you depending on a certain goal that you have. And that's why I'd quickly like to go through a couple goals and give you some tips on targeting options that make sense. So in this case, if you'd like to gain more traction, increase your brand awareness, then why not start out with some demographics? Things like age 35 and upwards, a parent. If you prefer to be considered to influence the likelihood of a later conversion, then affinity audiences or custom affinity audiences may be just right for you. Here you can choose groups like the do-it-yourselfers or those who frequently shop at big box stores. If you prefer to target someone who's in a certain life stage, that's also possible and can be recommended here for the consideration goal, so that you can reach out to someone that's just signaled a major life event. So for example, after a marriage or a retirement, those are the people you want to try and reach out to. You can do that through the life stages. Or if you're really keen on pushing your sales, either you can try and reach out to new visitors and potential customers through things like similar audiences to people who are very similar to those that recently booked a room or booked a table at a restaurant. You could use in-market and custom intent audiences. So those that, for example, visited sites or apps that signaled intent to book, for example, a hotel or a restaurant, or the keyword option. So using keywords for content, things that have to do with a certain topic, and try and reach out to those who are currently engaging with that kind of content, things like best waves in Honolulu, if you have a surf shop there and want to try and reach people who are already searching for things about that. Or you can try and reach existing customers and visitors. And for that, there is the cross-device remarketing. So trying to get people who've already visited your website or your app back onto that website and app. Or even the customer match option. And for this, you may be eligible if you have an assigned account manager. And once you can use this option, you can re-engage with the people that you already know. And now let's have a look at the bidding strategies. Now, of course, it's important to note here that users' behavior has become extremely complex. We're no longer only on one device or on one platform, we're on many different platforms across several devices every single day. And even if you were on Google Ads as an advertiser every day and would be checking out the bids there and adjusting them slightly, there's no way you could do it as precisely as machine learning. And in fact, thanks to machine learning, you not only save time having to adjust these bidding strategies, but you can select a bidding strategy and with machine learning, have it completely optimize the bidding depending on unique combinations of user signals. So things like where the user is currently located, the education, the shopping behavior, the day of the week that it is, the time of the day that it is, all of these little bits and bobs of information together can be used to give us a much, much better picture of that potential new customer, of that end user. And with machine learning, Google Ads can really try and reach that person at the right moment in time. Because we all know that seeing a banner ad somewhere where we really couldn't be bothered more and it doesn't have anything to do with us or something we're interested in, that can be just very irrelevant. But it doesn't have to be like that. It can be totally relevant, reaching the right user at the right moment in time. And with machine learning, that is possible. And with that said, I'd like to give you an overview of all of the different types of bidding strategies that there are. So you don't have to do it manually, but can rely totally on machine learning. Again, here we have different goals that are matched with different strategies so that you know what makes most sense for you and your business. Now, if you're looking to gain more visibility, then VCPM is the way to go for you. VCPM stands for Visible Cost Per Mille, meaning the visible cost per 1,000 impressions. In other words, you pay a price for 1,000 impressions that are visible to users across the Google Display Network. That sure gives you a lot of visibility. If you're more interested in getting website clicks, then CPC or maximize clicks could be the right option for you. Now, CPC stands for cost per click. So here you're essentially paying per click onto your ad, or you can choose to maximize those clicks. And all of these different strategies that I just mentioned are possible even without conversion tracking. If you do have conversion tracking in place, then you can even opt for the more advanced strategies. For example, if you'd like to generate more conversions or sales, then what you can do is choose the strategy cost per conversion, maximize conversions, or target CPA, target cost per acquisition. Now, with regards to the cost per conversion, it's important to note here that this is only possible if you meet certain conversion requirements. And with target CPA, a lot of times what advertisers will do when they're just starting out is actually have a target CPA that's far too low and therefore causes the ad to have barely any impressions at all. Therefore, it's super, super important to make sure that you have enough conversions already, that you've generated enough conversions to know what your average cost per conversion is, and then define a target. That's not too far beneath that, because again, otherwise you may not have enough impressions. And for those of you who are really keen on pushing your revenue, what you can do is select target ROAS as a recommended strategy. In other words, target return on advertising spend. And this means that per franc or euro or dollar that you invest, how much revenue you generate. And now let's have a look at the different ad formats that there are. Now, what makes a good display ad so interesting? I mean, first off, in my opinion, the content needs to fit the screen. So whether I'm on my desktop or on my tablet or on my phone, it's an absolute must that the ad fits that screen size. What I have noticed, though, especially when images are being used with text on them, is that this may be a little rigidy depending on the device that it's shown on, and therefore I don't recommend using images that have too much text on them, unless, of course, it's for your logo. But yeah, you want to have the user see something very relevant, and for that, it's absolutely essential that the ad matches the screen size. It's also very important that the ad looks native. So it shouldn't stick out on a certain website or app like a sore thumb. It should blend in to make the user accept it more easily and potentially read it, because it does look like part of that whole website, like it should be there. And to do those things, I can highly recommend the responsive ad format. Here, you upload a logo, you upload certain images, you can create headlines and descriptions, and regardless of the end device that the user is on, this ad will be created in a responsive way to fit that screen and look native within the website or app the user is currently on. And yet, it's very important to note here that there are certain guidelines for these images. So for example, the size cannot be larger than 150 kilobytes. And especially for things that have animations, these animations may not take longer than 30 seconds, because otherwise the ads will actually be disapproved. There are more ad formats, though. In fact, one of them is dynamic ads. This is when ads are generated dynamically based on a certain feed. We'll look into them in just a moment. We also have image ads, where you can upload images. You can even create small animations and upload these. And lightbox ads. And you may have seen these before. These are actually expandable ads with like a gallery of images that can pop up and fill the entire screen so that the user can view these much more clearly. And there are Gmail ads, meaning that these appear on Gmail so that users can directly see and potentially take use of the call to action from their inbox. And coming back quickly to the dynamic display ads, so these can be created, but they do need a data feed. And for you to create that data feed, you need to set up a Google Merchant Center account and link that to the back end of your website so that you can create a data feed, or you could upload a data feed. But then, of course, you need to re-upload it every time you have a change in your inventory, for example. So I can highly recommend to directly link it with the back end of your website. The Google Merchant Center looks something like this. Again, here you can sign up and you can set up that data feed. And if you have any questions or concerns, whether or not you've done it correctly, then check out the Google Ads Help Center for more information about that. Once all that is set, your dynamic ads will be generated according to the data from that feed. And just to touch up on some more tips for display creatives, well, first and foremost, it's absolutely essential to use call to actions. And while this may seem very clear from a marketing perspective, it's actually a little hidden. And you'll see this when we create the ad together in just a moment. Also, make sure to state prices, promotions, or any exclusive offers, because at the end of the day, these USPs, these unique selling propositions that differ you from your competitors, that could be the reason that a potential customer opts for you. Then with regards to the text and images, again, make sure that there's a balance between the text and images. With regards to your landing page, you need to make sure that this is relevant for the ads that are being displayed, so that when users do click, they don't just end up on your home page, but they actually end up on the correct subpage within your site, on your site, and are at the right spot and can directly convert from there. Also, there are different formats. Make use of that. It's a great way to A/B test and see which formats work best for your products or services. And last but not least, check out the Google Ads policies for display ads, because there are certain types of content that are prohibited, as well as practices. There's also restricted content and features, as well as editorial and technical standards you need to abide to. And with that said, let's dive right in to the Google Ads account and create a display campaign. For those of you who don't yet have a Google Ads account, you can check out the description to this video, because I've added a link to a previous video where we set up a Google Ads account. So you can do that through the previous video. And now I'll show you how to create a display campaign. So within your Google Ads account, here under the campaigns rubric, you can create a new campaign. Now, the first thing that we'll be asked to select is a certain goal. And depending on the goal that you have, it'll give you tips with regards to the type of campaign. So here, if you want to drive sales, or prefer more leads, want to generate website traffic, or want product and brand consideration, brand awareness and reach, app promotion, or you can create a campaign without a goals guidance. Now, especially for display campaigns, I can highly recommend the product and brand consideration goal or the brand awareness and reach. But just to show you all the different types of campaigns that there are, I'll select no goal, and now you can see these are all of the different types of campaigns to choose from. Again, we will be doing a display campaign, so we can select display, opt for the standard display campaign, or choose a Gmail campaign. We'll be doing the standard display today, and here you can enter your business's website and click continue. Now, next up, we'll have to think of a name for our campaign. And what I typically do here is make sure to add the country it's being displayed in. So in our case, Switzerland. We are a Swiss online marketing agency, and the language that the campaign is in, so English, and then the actual campaign name. And in this case, if we'd like to create brand awareness, I'll call it the awareness. Now, next up, we can choose where we would like this campaign to be displayed, whether we want it to be a worldwide campaign only in Switzerland, or we can even opt for another location and narrow things down. Furthermore, here throughout to enter another location, we can also select places we would like to exclude. And that brings us here to this targeting and excluding part of the campaign setup, in which we can say exactly how we'd like to target the location we've selected, whether we want to target people in or who show interest in these targeted locations, or either or, meaning only people in or regularly in your targeted locations, or people who show interest in your targeted locations. Again, for us, it's fine to use both, but for excluding locations, you can exclude people who are geographically in your excluded locations or those who are in or show interest in. Again, since we're not excluding anything, it's fine to leave it like this, but you may need to think about this depending on if you're excluding certain locations. As for the language, yes, we are targeting English speakers, but since we don't want to exclude anyone merely based on their language settings, we can opt for all languages. Now, with regards to bidding, it's already pre-selected a bidding strategy for us, being high quality traffic, and that's great if you really want to create traffic. But again, we're more interested in awareness. We want to create brand awareness, and therefore viewable impressions is the way to go for us. These are impressions of the ads that are seen by the target group we'll later on select. Still, if you can't find the right bidding strategy, you can opt for an actual bidding strategy here, and you'll see the different ones that we spoke about earlier. But again, for many of them, it only makes sense if you've actually set up conversion tracking, unless, of course, like in our case, you're interested in these viewable 1,000 impressions, in which case you can keep that there. Here we can enter our daily budget. It's important to say here that this is the average daily budget that will be spent, meaning that there may be days where more of it is spent, but that will be compensated on days where less of that daily budget is spent. On average, we're going to start out with a budget of about 10 francs per day. And here, if we go to additional settings, you'll see that we can select whether we want Google Ads to prefer best performing ads, which we will, but you can also opt to just not optimize. Again, if you have conversion tracking in place, you can optimize for conversions, or, which is not supported, rotate evenly. But again, we'll leave it at optimize for the best performing ads. Here we could alter the ad schedule, meaning that if we only want it to display throughout certain hours of the day, or even throughout certain days of the week, that's possible here. For us, it's fine to show at any time of day and any day of the week. And then here we can say when we would like our campaign to begin, Now, I would always choose at least the following day as opposed to starting right now, because seeing as it's already past 10 a.m., it's already 10:40 a.m., we would be losing a whole lot of data if we were to start today. Whereas if we start this campaign tomorrow, right after midnight, this campaign will start, and then we have the full data for this campaign and can also much more easily compare it with other full days where we also have the total data. Here you can select an end date, which is great if you have a promotion. For us, though, it's fine to leave it at none. And here you can choose whether you want to show this ad on all the devices or only target specific devices. For us, it's fine to leave show on all devices. Frequency capping is also great because, let's be honest, you don't want to have your users see this ad non-stop. So what I'll recommend to do is set a limit for the impressions for the whole campaign to about 7 times per week. There we go. Meaning that users who we'd like to target will see an ad from this campaign no more than 7 times in a given week. Now, for those of you who are using third-party tracking devices, you may need to set up some more parameters here, which you can do. Then, if you'd like to start a dynamic display ad, you can opt to select a data feed here, but again, you'd need to first set that up through the Google Merchant Center. For those of you who'd like to set up conversion tracking, you can do so right here. And then we also have the option to exclude certain content. Now, what this means is, of course, all of the websites and apps, etc., that are part of the display network, they're categorized into content labels, meaning whether or not that they can be viewed by the public, which would be G, general audiences, then even families, PG, which is content that's more for audiences with parental guidance, T would be for teens and older audiences, and MA is for mature audiences. Now, of course, for us, we are not very picky with regards to where it's exactly displayed, but I do recommend to exclude content that has not yet been labeled. So we'll set that up here. And then if we look into sensitive content, this is something that we need to consider excluding. Things like websites or apps around tragedy and conflict, sensitive social issues, profanity, rough language, as well as sexually suggestive and sensational and shocking. These are all things we don't want our brand to be associated with, so we'll exclude them here. Furthermore, there's content type you can exclude. Things like a live stream on YouTube, which we will exclude because you never really know what will happen in a live stream. Things could go horribly wrong. Then below the fold content is not as interesting, seeing as a user is not likely to see that. And parked domains. So when a domain is not yet connected to a website, let's say, then oftentimes you'll just have a one-pager saying this is in construction, work in progress. But again, we don't necessarily want our click ads to appear there, so I'll also exclude that. And next up, we can already select our audiences. Now, if this were our first ad group, and we wanted to reach out to, let's say, entrepreneurs. What we could do is we could select here under Browse any of the options here that have to do with this entrepreneurial group. So if we go to who they are, here we can choose the parental status, marital status, education, and home ownership status. And you can see if I click onto it, there's typically a little box that I can select. Same here. Or we can choose their interests and habits. So things that entrepreneurs are interested in. Now, there's also the possibility to reach out to them the moment that they're researching or planning something, or there's been a life event. And this could be very interesting for us. So while here for this custom intent audience, we'd have to actually create a custom intent audience, and I'll show you how to do that here. So let's say we have our female entrepreneurs. There we go, and it'll give us more ideas here. Create. And we could create male entrepreneurs. And see some more ideas here. There we go. Choose business. There we go. Now, these are custom intent audiences, but as you can see, the available impressions are only at 1K. So it's important we try and see if we can find any in-market audiences that'll fit to our target group. Possibly business services, but still that's quite vague. And so what we could do is opt for a life event, in which case you'll see the creation of a business is listed. And this is perfect because we for sure want to target people who have just started their company and need help with online marketing. There's also the possibility, again, to reach out to people who have either, for example, been part of a combined list, or we have here our website visitors list of people who visited the website throughout the last 30 days. And again, this could be very interesting if you want to reach out to people again, especially those who maybe have not yet converted on your website after visiting. For us, these audiences are just fine, so I'll click done. And now you can see that we could opt either for demographics to narrow down that audience. But for us, it really doesn't matter the gender, the age, or the parental status. And indeed, you could narrow it down some more by selecting content targeting. So things like the keyword targeting options, the topics, and the placements we spoke about earlier. To narrow down where your ad is being shown For us, that's fine. And here we can even further expand the targeting by increasing the reach based on the settings we selected above. Google Ads will now try and reach even more people who are very similar to those audiences we've selected. Meaning for us, this would mean an added reach of 40,000 more impressions per week, which is great. So we'll keep that in for now. Lastly, we have to select an ad group bid. So how much we're willing to bid for 1,000 impressions of our ad. For us, it'll be about 2 francs 50. And now we can create our display ad. If you already use a tool to create an animated display ad, you can upload it here, or you can copy existing ads, but we'll start off with a responsive display ad. Now, first off, we'll need to enter the final URL that we want users to be directed to if they were to click on an ad. It's important here to add the HTTPS. And then, of course, we don't want them to be to land on our homepage. We want them to be directly on the correct subpage, on our offer page. And now we can choose images and logos. So what we'll do here is click right there. You can see that based on the website, it's already shown us images that are on the website. And both of these are fine, but we won't use them as an image. We'll use them as a logo. Select both. And now we need a couple of cool photos. And while we do have some nice photos, we want something more personal. Now, for that, you can either upload some files here, or you can choose to look for some images here. And for us, of course, it's nice to have something that looks very personal with people, but also very marketing-like, with like a laptop. So we can actually choose any of these images. And the cool thing is the watermark will not show when the ad is displaying. So we can use any of these images. And I highly recommend to use more than just one. So for example, this one here, or this one here. Let's start out with this one. There we go. And we can select both of these. Plus, of course, if we want something more like this, there we go. And we can do many, many more. Checking our assets to give one last look and make sure everything is fine, and then we can click Save. And now Google will give us a quick preview of different ad formats. Of course, though, again, for the actual ad, this watermark would not show. Still, you can see we're still missing the headline and description, so we can add them here. And to make sure that there's a small A/B test, we'll add 2. as well as longer headlines, because here these short headlines will give us, similar to actual search ads, 30 characters in total. The longer headlines will actually give us 90. So we can have and here in the description, we can add an actual text with a call to action, or select to use a button call to action, which is what I recommend. So here we could add something like interested in building an online presence. But don't know where to start. We can help. Or want to uncover your online potential. We're happy to set up a free consultation. There we go. Then it's important to add your business name. And lastly, again, if you need to be using any more tracking options because you use third-party tracking tools, you can do that here, and even opt to use a different final URL for mobile devices. But even more important than that is this button I was mentioning earlier, the call to action button. This will look really neat, and you can select from any one of those call to actions, as well as the language it should be in, and then it'll add a nice little button for some of these display ads with that exact call to action. Now you can see a nice little preview on mobile as well as on desktop. And here we go. We have our call to action, learn more. Now, for those of you who want to take this even one step up and customize the colors to be in line with your corporate identity, you can do that too. You can enter the main color you'd like the ads to be in, as well as an accent color. And there you go. Now everything should be in line with your corporate identity. And you can see that it very well matches what we would like it to look like for potential users, potential entrepreneurs, or actual entrepreneurs, but potential customers of our online marketing agency. And with that, we simply add to add group. And now we can create the campaign. Here we can double check all of the entries that we made, and if that works out, continue to campaign, and congrats, we've set it all up. This campaign is ready to go. Now, with that said, I'd just like to show a couple more online resources for you here. So for those of you who are interested in checking out some trends to get a little inspiration, or you want to read some market studies before you get going, go through marketing tools, or check your page speed and mobile UX, you can do all of that by visiting the links in the presentation. There's also website support you can find and COVID-19 support resources. And with that said, I'm happy to start the Q&A session. So if you've been saving your question up to the very end, go ahead and ask. For now, I don't see any questions, but I will be staying online to answer any more of your questions for those of you who are now typing away. For those of you who are all set, I'd love to hear how you like this live stream. So feel free to give me feedback either by typing in the short URL or by scanning the QR code. And with that, thanks so much for your feedback. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and thanks for watching. All right. If there are any more questions, I will stay online for a couple more minutes just to give you the time you may need. Glad someone mentioned they very much enjoyed the webinar. Thank you for watching. And I look forward to hearing your feedback over the feedback forum. Any more questions? All right. Well, if you do have any more questions, you're more than welcome to ask them in the comment section, and we'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks, and take care.